when you protect your data, you have to make sure that your server is also protected. Make sure that alam mo yung mga IP ng nag-access ng APIs mo, because the APIs are actually the one delivering data to your front end. Welcome to Kaka Computer, and for today's episode, we're going to talk about cloud computing and data careers, demystifying technology and in-demand skills.
Whoa.
So first question natin is, what are the key differences between cloud computing and traditional IT infrastructure? Wants to go
Wow.
first?
As in, talagang ready na tayo.
Very technical.
Intro, and then question. Okay, Ariel, baka naman gusto mo to start with that?
I think, siguro yung cost and scalability. Kasi with cloud, mas madali kang mag-reduce or mag-add compared sa infrastructure. Kasi pag infra kasi it will take so much time pa. While sa cloud, it would take a minute lang ganun to provision. Tapos, syempre yung cost, mas mahal yung infra compared sa cloud na pwedeng pay as you go. Pero sa infra, mag-invest ka talaga ng malaki agad, isang bagsakan. Ganun.
Anyone wanted to add on to that?
So for me lang, no, I'm working in the industry for more than 10 years already. So I've also have on-prem and cloud. So it actually differs from organization to organization. If they want their data to be in-house and they have more, if they want to be more like tailor fit sa kanila yung infrastructure nila, mostly they would really want to have it on-prem. The difference is that just like hardware, may lifespan talaga yun. So you have to do like maintenance, like always making sure that you have regular backups. Though that really is physical, since naka-house talaga siya, and you need a space for it. You need engineers to actually do the maintenance. Whereas cloud naman, scalability wise, okay, and then you can experiment on things. Pwede ka na mag-provision ng mga instances at a low cost, and you can access the data anywhere as long as yung huge difference niya is, I think, yung security apart from cost. Kasi when you say cloud kasi, you're putting up your data on someone else's computer. So data centers, right? So it's up to you as an engineer to design what are the security layers to safeguard your data. Whereas kung on-prem kasi, naka-route lang yung data mo within the people, within the units na may access doon sa network na yun. So that's a huge difference, and it varies from organization to organization. They have their reasons for choosing on-prem. They also have their reasons for choosing cloud. So
alright, siguro to put it simple lang, no. By dictionary definition of cloud computing, para lang what it really meant when we say cloud. So by dictionary definition, if you look into what is cloud, it's the on-demand delivery of IT resources over the internet. So meaning you don't have to have your own physical infrastructure, and that's what we mean when we say on-premise, diba? And housing your infrastructure. So if you're using cloud, you don't have that physical, tangible servers and devices that you deal with, but everything can be accessed through the internet. So if you need a server, you need security tools, you don't have to set everything up, you don't have to have your own server room or data center, because having that means that's the traditional IT infrastructure, meaning you have to maintain all the physical hardware of everything, connectivity, network, cooling, overhead space. Yan. So that's the traditional IT infrastructure naman.
Yeah.
All right.
So just to add to what Jen said, I guess the way that I like to think about it is
Traditional is you're the one maintaining the actual server. You see it physically, you're in charge of making sure it's up and running all the time. But when you're using cloud, you're most likely you're accessing it through the internet, and you're paying another company to take care of the maintaining the physical hardware for you. So you're maybe using something like Azure, AWS, Google, up to you. But that's usually like how I like to think of it on my own.
Okay, so speaking of Azure, AWS, Google, so which tools or services or even programming languages do you think essentials for professionals like you ladies working in cloud? What else do you use?
You should know your basic terminal commands. That's a very basic
Oh
thing.
man.
Also, shell scripting, very helpful. And depends also if saan nyo ba nire-run yung server nyo? What type of language does it support? Kasi some are running on Node, some are running on Java, some are running on Python. So it depends on what the application is running it, but definitely Linux commands, terminal commands,
So,
shell scripting.
Since you were
know.
mentioning about commands, Linux, maybe can you tell us about a brief background? What do you do? Bakit yun yung mga tools na minention mo, na ginagamit mo?
What do I do? I've been a software engineer most of my career, but I've transitioned many roles. I've been full stack. I've been DevOps. I've been solutions architect and engineering lead. I've also been a CTO at some point. But yeah, definitely, since if you're going to at some point manage the high level things and manage people, you'll really have to have God access everywhere. Production database, servers, and all that. So really, you have to access the servers via the terminal, and may mga UI tools naman could help you, but definitely mas okay yung i-access mo siya via terminal. So yeah. How about you? What do you do,
Alright.
ma'am?
So that's coming from an admin, SA, very technical roles talaga, di ba?
Talented.
So, how about you?
Right now, I'm a cloud application specialist. So, more on AWS yung hinandle ko. But, yeah, for me, actually, I agree kasi yun din yung usually ginagamit, shell scripting, Linux command, and more on Python din. So, ayun. Pero, depende din talaga sa user kung saan nyo talaga siya nire-run.
Okay. So I'll change this one up a little bit since the question is cloud essential tools or languages for cloud computing and data roles. So I'm not working in cloud right now, but I previously had a solutions architect internship. So that one naman, I'd say for me, what's important in cloud is probably to just learn, at least one, whatever cloud provider that is. It can be Azure, AWS, up to you. For data, actually now I usually see Python. Yan
Yes.
talaga. That's what I really
Data.
hear from people. So, I don't think I've ever heard of someone like using Java for data. Parang wala pa. Tell me na lang if meron. Pero usually, like, Python talaga siya. And as long as you have the basics of Python and SQL, if you understand, like, how the code works, the logic of it, it's easily transferable naman. So, I think that's it for me.
Yeah, so Python is a good programming language to start. And wherever you may lead you to your path, no, like you mentioned, learning a different programming languages as needed would be not really easy, but at least yung transition, 'di ba? If you have that foundation
Yeah.
knowledge, you understand how programming languages works.
Yes,
It would be a really good background to start with. So may it be, ayun nga lang, kapag Java,
Yeah.
medyo malayo.
Malayo
Pero the logical way of thinking how you program, 'di ba? Your software, your applications, very, very helpful. So, anyone working with data right now?
Actually, I have a side job working as a data engineer. So,
Yeah. Let's
BigQuery,
go.
gumagawa kami ng data warehouse. But I cannot say what the what the data we're handling. Naka-NDA. But yeah, basically we're using BigQuery and also like Looker Studio. So we aggregate data, make some graphs about it, and make some insights about it. So yeah, usually naka-ano siya. We also try to do data migration. So yung on-prem na database kina-cloud namin and then sinestreamline namin to BigQuery. So it will be more powerful in terms of like analytical functions.
Cloud Sensei is a social impact education technology company focusing on solving critical problems with learning and skills gaps between college degrees and modern technology requirements. Visit cloudsensei.net to know more.
Okay. Yun. So in terms of that, no, what do you think would be very helpful for those who are looking at cloud roles, data roles, for them to start using or learning? Any advice?
First is mag-aral ka ng provider. I mean, for me, I've used the three, but I would really suggest Google Cloud, because it's cheap. I think compared to the three, you can also spun an instance at a very low cost. So it's very good for POCs, proof of concept na projects. That's one. Because right now, if you're going to provision a database na provider na din, for example, Postgres or like SQL, tas resource na siya on the cloud, that would be much more expensive. So what if the better way is to actually like provision an instance and then put the database there. So it's just a pure server instance na hindi siya actually database server instance because it's cheaper that way. So that and of course know your relational non-relational database basics. So right now NoSQL is also like very popular na. So you have to be very curious about data. You have to love data, because it's a very interesting career. Data, they say, is the new oil right now. And data science is the sexiest job, they say, in terms of like paycheck. So, so that's, if not, that would be a good motivation for you to get started. I don't know what is. That's my 2 cents about it.
Okay, so kanina you mentioned about, we're working with data and we have an NDA. So speaking of NDA, how do you approach data security handling now that you're working in data science? A lot of sensitive matters, right? So how do you address or approach data privacy or security in cloud?
So maybe I can start. We have this thing called PII, personally identifiable information.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do some data masking. So for example, the data has the address, name, birthday, this type of things. Before we actually process it, we have to do some data masking. What data masking is you try to, kung parang sentence siya, pinaparaphrase mo siya. So you're trying to paano ba yung i-mutate mo yung data na hindi siya yung exact na data. But it still makes sense on a contextual basis. So ginagawa namin yan to protect the identity of the user, of course. And we have also like in Philippines, we have data privacy law. So we have to be legally compliant to that. We have to be aware also, like if you're working with European clients, they have GDPR. So you have to be compliant with GDPR as well. So I've worked with one application na we're only allowed to store PIIs for 3 months. After that, i-delete na namin yan. So that's part of like the regulation and compliance thing. So you have to be aware of these things, especially if you're working with data. And if you're like, that's a security method. There's another side to security, which means like you have to encrypt the password using some hash algorithms and all that. That's another technical side of it. But yeah, I'll let the others actually.
Actually, kasi ako, I'm not the one handling the security of our data. It's somebody else. Pero Same goes naman na we don't include PII in our data. So that's something that we also have. So either way, when the data comes to me, I don't actually know who the data is pertaining to anymore. I just see it as like, oh, these are the important parts, but the identifiable stuff, I don't see it anymore. So I think that's how we do it for ours.
Sa akin naman, fortunately, hindi dumadating sa akin yung data. So, I'm not the one handling it then. So, hindi, ayun, good thing. Hindi ko siya kailangan i-handle. So, ayun.
But I want to touch on what she mentioned earlier about encryption.
Yeah.
Yan. So, very important ang encryption. So, protecting your data as another layer so that what happens in encryption is, of course, you have your plain data. And then we transform and mask that using what we call a private key or another key with encryption keys. Yan. So, different types of keys to transform parang may another language pero kayo lang yung nagkakaintindihan. Alam niyo ba yon? May batang 90s ako. So, familiar ba kayo sa mga G-words? Agalagam nyo go, bagayo go, agon. So, for the Gen Zs, you probably doesn't know that. But in my generations, diba? If you talk like G-words, nagigets mo ba yung sinabi ko kanina? 'Di ba? Hindi nila naintindihan 'yon, 'di ba? So that's encryption and we only get to understand what we're saying in our type of language because you know the type of key that I used in that sentence. So that's an easy way to put encryption is. It's very simple way to make sure the right proper people or avenue gets to understand what you're saying, and third party, what is this junk? They can't really understand, they cannot comprehend. So I think that's one simple but really good way to secure and protect your data. And
On
I
top
think-
of yan, so mga basic security things na you have to make sure na your API calls are issuing tokens. That's on top ha. Kasi of course, when you protect your data, you have to make sure that your server is also protected. Make sure that alam mo yung mga IP ng nag-access ng APIs mo because the APIs are actually the one delivering data to your front end. So that's on top of that. Bare minimum yung mga sinabi kanina. You also have to make sure that your servers are secure.
All right. And with that, just to wrap up our session right now, so maybe bullet points lang or things on top of your head, what emerging trends or technologies in cloud computing and data science should professionals be aware of? So we mentioned about encryptions, API, data masking, what else?
I'd say for me, not specifically on the data side, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this, and people say it again and again, but always AI.
AI.
Same thing. Yeah, something to be aware of, but not something to be afraid of. Use responsibly, and it helps make work a lot more efficient.
And to add lang, use it as a tool. Hindi, wag niyo
It's
siya
not a replacement.
Yes.
It's not a human replacement.
Yes. So, yun nga, use it responsibly lang kasi it would make your life better and easier if gagamitin niyo siya ng tama.
So when we say emerging trends, I would say one very specific thing in AI. It's retrieval augmented generation. It actually means you're using data models out there like GPT-4 or Gemini, and then you're using your own data for that model to learn. So that is very interesting, and actually many big enterprises are using RAG right now. So maybe that's something you may want to check.
Okay, you mentioned models and that's part of machine learning. So with that, I hope that you learned so much from our session. And thank you for tuning in for this episode, Cloud Computing and Data Careers, Demystifying Technology and In-Demand Skills. So hopefully this session and conversation with us would find me very helpful for you, listeners out there. Thank you.